How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I just wanted to do a bit of a video talking about fuel consumption, fuel usage, what I think's the best. Just a little discussion on the situation, mention some things that you might not know, you might know, might be worth bearing in mind. Do whatever you want with the information. And the two main trucks I'm going to be focusing on are the Dolphin and John, but I brought Brucey along. Brucey's a little bonus because I was curious myself, to be honest. It's another Azov. It's actually got a different engine. So I just want to do a run up and down the runway with all three of them, kind of see what happens with the fuel, because they've got different gearboxes and all sorts. Brought the GMC along just to top them all back up to full before I go. While I was here, do you want some Tega? We'll juice everyone up. Why is it when you click on the fuel, speaking of fuel, it's got source and target, and it puts the maintenance trailer that's full, I might add, as the target? Why would you do that? When am I ever... I can't put more fuel in it, game. Why do you not prioritise it? And then it's like, what? Tega needs repairing, but why? We treat you so well. But yeah, anyway, fix that up, top that up for no particular reason. I mean, reintroducing OG Loaf. He's back in the game, imported especially from Imandra, pure 100% Imandrian Loaf. Yeah, like I said, the main two is Dolphin and John, because they're essentially identical trucks. I know they look slightly different or whatever, but they've got 8 wheels. Diff locks on, all that sort of stuff, 2 front steering axles, they've got identical engines, they must be pretty bloody similar on weight because they both have the same power to weight ratio. Obviously the big difference though, John, I mean as far as we're talking with fuel, John is the clear winner because it's got 350 litres, whereas Dolphin's only got 200, it's almost half the fuel. But I do also think, as I've been playing this game through the months, there is a bit more to it than just how many litres per minute or whatever is getting used, or how big the fuel tank is. Because another thing as well is obviously speed, and to me that makes a big difference, because the amount I can get done in an hour is... it's more convenient for me to have a faster truck, because I can go further in an hour. If I need to top up the fuel once or twice in that hour, that doesn't eat or waste enough of my time to where it'd be better prioritising a slower truck that's got more fuel. So, like I said, I'm doing a run down to the bottom of the runway. Fortunately, I kind of clipped my chin on the rocks at the end because I think I was about to go flying off the edge. But that's all I'm planning on doing, flying down there, turn around at the bottom, head back and see how much fuel I've used. And I've, personally for myself, I've done these tests a couple of times before, but I was talking to someone in the comments the other day, sort of explaining what I've found from doing my testing and stuff. But I also wanted to retest it to see, has it changed since then? So basically, flying down there and back, I used 11 litres, and it pretty much took me dead on a minute to go there and back. So next up, I'm going to send John. And like I said, it's got more fuel, so it's definitely going to be able to theoretically travel a lot further. But yeah, my point is, as you can see, because it's slow, I was almost tempted to edit like a little bit of this out, but it kind of, if I'm talking about fuel and this thing flying down the runway, and I'm talking about how quick they can go there and back, then I thought I may as well leave it in. I'll ramble about what I was going to say with the fuel situation. Because this thing is a lot slower, it might be using less litres per minute, but if you imagine it in terms of litres per mile, this thing, if it's going to take twice as long to do a mile, even if the litres a minute is half the amount, you're still using the same amount of fuel. So again, this thing has a bigger fuel tank, so you'll be able to get further in that sense. But once you're just driving around, generally speaking, if you're picking fuel out of trailers that you've got dotted around, you're still probably going to need to pick a similar amount of fuel out the trailer, because again, this thing uses less but takes longer to get there. As far as fuel stations go in this game, obviously fuel's free, especially from a station. I know they're free from a trailer, but once you've emptied that trailer, you've got to do something about it. And generally in this game, as I travel around the game, I don't really ever find, I use the Dolphin a hell of a lot, as you would have seen in plenty of my videos, and it's very rare that I'll ever do something to where I run out of fuel. I kind of plan fuel in to my journey anyway, but in near enough every map there's a fuel station. If not, there's usually a pretty conveniently placed fuel trailer. For times there hasn't been, I've pretty much gone and taken a fuel trailer and put it there. And even the fact that the Dolphin is a lot quicker than this, I can still go back to the garage, say get out a loaf, I don't, even in this situation, I've got a Scout fuel trailer on the back of the loaf. I don't even really need to do that. If I took a loaf with me, that's got a 120 litre roof rack, an 80 litre tank, so there's another 200 litres, add it together, that's basically 400 litres that I could travel with the Dolphin quicker than John. I've now got more fuel and I've got repairs. Yeah, just obviously flew back there and back with John. John, I believe, used 9 litres. To be fair, every other time I've done the test it used 10 litres, but this time it used 9, but whatever. It basically took exactly twice as long as the Dolphin. I believe it was like pretty much dead on 2 minutes, whereas the Dolphin was a minute. So, yeah, like, as far as how much work I could have done, if there was a mission to just fly down here, drop something off and head back, like, I could do that twice over in the Dolphin versus John. And then, like I said, this was a bit of a Brucey bonus just for my own curiosity. This thing's got the different engine, like KZGT, whatever it's called. I believe it's the same engine as the Dan. It's a pretty beastly powerful engine. And yeah, I was curious, but when I got back, it only just blipped down to like 11 litres used. So it was almost sort of 10, but call it 11 then. So it was like 11, 9 and 11, or 11, 10 and 11, or whatever it was. So they all near enough use the same fuel. Funny enough, Bruce actually got a slightly faster time than John. That was also just a quick run in the off-road. Yeah, I believe the reason why Bruce got a faster time is because it's got slightly bigger wheels, and they've got the same gearboxes and everything. But for one revolution of the wheels, like the Bruce's, yeah, travels slightly bit further. So, and again, it didn't really use, or it used like 1 extra litre of fuel or whatever. Bruce has also got a 350 litre fuel tank, so that makes it pretty well for the fuel. But the thing is with Bruce, the sacrifice on lower speed than the Dolphin kind of feels like it's worth it, because Bruce is like a serious heavy hauling machine. Like, I can haul some serious stuff up some serious hills and it rarely gives up. I believe the Dolphin and John both stopped on the 3rd quarry hill in my reviews, whereas Bruce just nailed its way up there. What I'm doing now, by the way, it was just for my own curiosity. I've obviously started from Smithville Dam. Say I'm travelling to the Black River entrance, but because I'm setting off in the Dolphin and it's got less fuel, I wanted to see if I could fly down the road, nip to the fuel station and then go to the Black River entrance, and how long it'd take me. And then I'm going to go and do the same thing sort of in the in John, but I'm not going to bother going to the fuel station. So it was just kind of showing myself, like, how much time does it cost you to go out of your way to get extra fuel because this thing uses it quicker. Yeah, that took me about 1 minute 12 to 1 minute 14. I believe there was a tiny little glitch in the footage, so call it about 1:14 with the Dolphin. Yeah, now I'm going to take John. There is one thing, by the way, it's a little bit of a pain with John. You can't remove the beacons unless I'm missing something, but I went through every customization menu multiple times because, yeah, I wanted to just remove them. It's another thing, you can't have a light bar on John. I know you can put lights on the bumpers, but you can on the Dolphin as well. But yeah, the roof fog lights it doesn't have the option of. So as you can see though, yeah, it just ticks along a hell of a lot slower basically than the Dolphin. Don't even worry about that Navistar. He's listening out for moles. I don't trust them moles around my dam. Yeah, so even without the extra time taken to turn right down here and go and get fuel, basically, at the end of it, I believe it was like 1 minute and 10 seconds, so it was a couple of seconds quicker, and it's a pretty short journey to measure it from, which, that's another slight thing I will say there. It was my fault, but because the thing does drive pretty slow, I get distracted and I start sort of, whether I look at my phone or I'm having a sip of the coffee or I'm talking to my cat or whatever. Yeah, that's basically the reason I just crashed John there at the end, because I wasn't paying attention. This was just a little test run I did before. Deleted the suspension pretty nicely there, but as I was going down here, there's a nice little drift the whole way, just keeping it off that barrier. I was pretty goddamn happy at this point, and then, oh, god damn it, Dolphin in his big massive chin, and then I landed and it deleted me. Which I will say though, while I'm on the subject, like, that's another risk, so to speak, with the Dolphin. It can go quicker, it's more likely to take damage on its suspension, but you can crash into stuff flat out in the Dolphin, and you won't damage it, like, you won't damage the engine or anything, whereas you will with John. So another reason, though, why I like the higher speed in the Dolphin is because a lot of you know this section, not too far from Black River, it's been in a lot of my reviews. the Dolphin can get enough pace to fly over there, and it's a little bit like a boat when they, I don't know, not hydroplane, is it that word? Or when a boat kind of steps up on like the water, and rather than going through the water, it skims over the top. Dolphin kind of did that same thing, where through here with the high-range gearbox and everything, yeah, it could just cut through the mud, and it kind of doesn't have time to slow down. Right now, I'm artificially kind of making this happen by letting off the throttle and that, but what I wanted to kind of demonstrate and see for myself is I'm in high gear again, same gearbox and all the rest of it, but because I slowed down enough, it's now not skimming across the top of the mud and everything, it's now wheel spinning, you can see big rooster tails flicking up, it's even flicking mud up as well. That's obviously nailing my fuel even more, in terms of, say, fuel per metre. And yeah, that's what I tend to find like with slower trucks, not just John, these have just been, I'm not ragging on like John as a truck, like it's a very, very solid truck. Just for me, it's like, this is just basically the same truck, but a little bit of a leaner, meaner, better version, and it's quicker to boot, which, like, I always have the option of putting it in low range or whatever, but the high range and that is there. So yeah, as you can see, I kind of wheel span through the mud, yeah, nailed a lot more fuel and everything, and now I'm going to bring John. Again, I crashed into those rocks because I wasn't paying attention, I was like, waiting for it to eventually reach the horizon. And driving through here now, I'm in auto at the minute, now I drop it in high, but I don't let off the throttle or anything like that. I'm not trying to artificially create this situation, but because this thing isn't travelling fast enough to begin with, it has time to kind of sink into the mud. And now, I mean, they're not as big, the rooster tails, because it's not, the wheels aren't spinning as fast, but I've basically bogged down. I'm now using, you know, a fair amount of fuel per metre, if we're talking it like in that sense. And by the time I get out this other side, I believe like the fuel's ticking down to about 336 or whatever. So it used about 14-ish litres getting through there. Dolphin used about 14 to about here when I was in the high range, and I just flew across there. So yeah, it's one of those where you got to kind of weigh up. It's using fuel quicker, but if it can travel quicker, like that does, yeah, it does help, does make a difference. When I used to have my M5, that was like, I used to drive down and say hello to my parents that and go home. It used to cost me 40 quid just driving the thing to go and see them and back, but then if I drove really carefully and put it in the highest gear possible and went slow and all the rest of it, I managed to do it for 20 quid once. It was just only once for my own curiosity. The rest of the time I was quite happy to yeah, spend the extra money and get there a hell of a lot quicker. And then last up, messing around on Black River. Again, I was curious for myself. You can see I've got the off-road gearbox in the Dolphin, and this is what this is like the last quite important thing that I wanted to mention really, is the off-road gearbox isn't actually very good in the Dolphin at all. I think even if you're more of a fan of the off-road gearbox, you're kind of sabotaging not only the greatness of the Dolphin, but you don't seem to get anything back from it, because as you'll see here, I'm going to go and do this run with the off-road gearbox. I'm going to do a run with John, which has just got the, well, it was the advanced special. I'm never really going to go back to just the special gearbox. And then I'm going to do another run in the Dolphin with the high-range gearbox. And yeah, long story short, I suppose while I'm ticking along, is the Dolphin, like in this situation with the off-road gearbox, uses way more fuel to do this same. It's the mission, yeah, food delivery on Black River at the farm, and you got to take it to kind of the drilling site. It's pretty simple, easy mission, but especially with that little shortcut I just took, like I knew there was a fair bit of terrains. There's kind of like dry dirt roads, slightly boggy roads, pretty muddy bits and all sorts, so there's a nice little variety of terrains really, other than snow. Yeah, even when like back earlier in the video, I just edited them for time, so I didn't want this video to go too long. When I did the off-road gearbox up and down the runway, it took about 1 minute 15, whereas with the the high range gearbox it took a minute, so it's 25% slower with the off-road gearbox, but I used the same amount of fuel, so again there was no gain, it's just less, like, well, more time used up, but I didn't really get anything from it. And the same with this mission now. By the time I eventually get to the end, I believe I ended up using like 71 litres, which is a lot really, because this isn't necessarily that far of a distance. But you can see now, I'm just in auto. The reason I'm sitting it in auto is because I would do this in my own game time or whatever, like in 5th out of 5th in auto, I can go faster than I can in high range. So, like in the high range gear. Yeah, so I try and stay in auto, whereas when I do it with the high range gearbox Dolphin, I try to go in the high gear as much as I can, because generally speaking, it's just nice in high gear. There's enough revs there and all the rest of it that it just powers along very nicely in high. Like, a lot of the time you're actually costing yourself a bit of speed and everything by trying to work your way up through the gears in auto. But that's one of the big things that actually uses fuel with the Dolphin. Like, as you're going through the auto gears, you'll see it spike up into the 20s and all the rest of it, but then quite often it'll settle back down. Certainly the faster you're, once you're up to speed, because this game seems to work a little bit like how cruise control would work in a car. So there is speed caps in this game, and once you've reached like the speed cap, you don't need as much power to maintain that speed, so it drops like the revs down and everything. So yeah, on that run I believe it was 328 I got, which, well, you'll see, relatively speaking, is pretty slow. Next up, yeah, it's John, obviously advanced special. Yeah, though, when you're talking like getting up to speed, I mean, it's the same with John. Obviously, once you're up to like 5th out of 5th gear, for example, the litres per minute tend to drop down, because again, like, you don't need as much power to maintain that speed, particularly along like a normal road. But as you get into boggier conditions, that naturally slows you down in the game, so now the game has to apply more revs to maintain that same speed, and that's when your litres per minute jumps up. It doesn't really jump up that bad with John, whereas the Dolphin is a lot more volatile, like with the ranges it can go. Once you're actually sat up to speed with the Dolphin, it often sits about, it can go like 6, 7, 8-ish litres a minute. But it can also just as easily, you could hit a bit of terrain where you need to add the extra revs in, and it suddenly can jump up to like 22, 24 litres a minute. But then it does quickly sort of settle back down. So yeah, I mean, there's no, I'm not trying to make out like the Dolphin doesn't use more fuel, it blatantly does. Yeah, when you look at the rev counters on both of them, again, they've got identical engines. This one kind of idles, John idles at about, I believe it's around 600, 625 RPM. And quite a lot of the time when you're driving, it only goes up to about 900 RPM. It can rev up to 2000 RPM, but I was testing it around earlier. There's no point in putting the footage in, because it'll just be me staring at the rev counter for 20 minutes, flooring it through different terrains that you can't really see because I'm in first person view. Yeah, it rarely goes past 1000 RPM really. It jumped up, probably heading up for like 1300 when I was in some boggy bits, whereas the Dolphin revs up to 2500 RPM, but it heads up to that 2000-ish range a lot more often, hence pretty much why it burns more fuel. Obviously, one thing you got to remember in this game, and I need to keep telling myself this as well, is like they haven't actually built an engine that's got pistons running and it's not actually connected to a gearbox. It's all just coding, so stuff in this game doesn't necessarily behave like it would in real life. Like, for example, with the rev caps and speed caps on this game, like, you just wouldn't have that in real life. Or when you put it into the low range gear, like if I put John now into the low range gears, whichever selection of them, it only revs along at, again, around 1000 RPM, whereas it's got double the engine RPM. In real life, I would still be physically allowed to apply those RPMs to the low range gear. Probably wouldn't do him any favours in real life, but the point being, it's like, yeah, the game doesn't necessarily behave like real life, which I don't mind. I appreciate they've had to, you know, again, they've not built a real engine, it's all coding and sort of smoke and mirrors really to give the desired effect, which I get, obviously. It's I don't even don't know the first thing about coding myself, so I don't know how the hell you'd code like an actual engine that works in a kind of a realistic fashion. But as you can see, funny enough, with the times, this one I believe got 329, so it ended up being a second slower than Dolphin with the off-road gearbox. So we'll call them like an even tie. But this thing did use a lot less fuel than that did. I believe, is it like, was it 312? So it used 38 litres. And then, yeah, last but not least, painted in red this time. I've been mixing around with the colours a bit. I've got so rich and lazy on this game, thanks to Thomas Doherty and that engine thing, that I don't even go and find where I've left one of my trucks anymore. I just go and buy another one. So yeah, these are a new John, and a new Dolphin. Mark III Dolphin, I believe. Oh no, Mark IV Dolphin now. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, like I said, this one I'm in the high range gearbox. And obviously the first thing is a nice swifter pace about it. You'll see up here though, it definitely climbs up into the 20s as far as fuel usage goes, because it's needing those revs to maintain like the speed cap that it has in high range. But again, I mean, I'm driving past a fuel station now. I appreciate on this map that's a pretty close one, that's fair enough. But yeah, it's like, say for example, if I make it to a fuel station in this and I've got 50 litres left, and I make it to a fuel station in John and I've got 200 litres left, it doesn't matter that I've got 200 litres left because fuel's free. I'm just going to click the fuel button until it's full again. So in that respect, it's like, it's pretty rare. How many people who enjoy driving John, how often really do you ever get down to like 20 litres left? I'm not saying that won't happen or anything, but for me personally, I do factor in fuel. Like, you've always seen me bringing a loaf with me and all sorts, not just for fuel but for repair points. So yeah, it's just one issue that never really bothers me. And like I said, the fact that I can get more done in an hour with the Dolphin, like if we're talking this competition alone, and if I was just repeating it, I could get way more goes with the Dolphin per hour. So yeah, I'd essentially make a lot more money, which like I said, it's probably became a little bit less relevant recently. But for the majority of the game, not just getting richer per hour, it's like you might have a list of missions that you want to work through, and yeah, this thing is just overall going to get it done quicker, even if it costs you a little bit in, yeah, going on an extra detour to find an extra fuel station or two. And as you'll see, as we're coming up to here, I basically get, I believe it's 2 minutes 6 or 2 minutes 5. So it's like 1 minute 24 or whatever faster than the John, and also same truck as the first run with the Dolphin, but a different gearbox. It used way less fuel. It used like, I think it was 54 or 55 litres versus 71 with the off-road gearbox. And yeah, John used 38 litres, so 38 versus say 55, an extra, what, 17 litres. But that almost halved the time, or not quite, almost, well, 2 minutes 5 or whatever versus 3 minutes 29. So yeah, for me it's like I can handle the extra trip to the fuel station every now and then to get back that 17 litres for going quicker. So that's just my thoughts in general on it. This is another run I did with the Dolphin. I get 205 on this. And yeah, you can see as well, by the way, the difference between the two gearboxes with the Dolphin. There's no gain to be had really from the off-road. It just used a lot more fuel. It made the mission take like another almost a minute and a half longer. And I don't really get any extra boost in power because of the rev and speed caps that seem to be harsher in that off-road gearbox. Like I said, going up, say, the Quarry Hill and that, there isn't really any difference, I think, in like power, whereas that's where Bruce does have that extra gain, and it's like that's now worth the speed sacrifice. But yeah, it's nothing against John, because it's a good truck, but it's just I don't get any advantage. Like, this is just quicker and it does the same thing. But yeah, I'll leave it there for tonight. Like I say, it makes no odds to me. Drive whatever truck and gearbox suits you best. It's just, I thought, a bit of information that I've noticed myself, and little things like the off-road gearbox basically costing more fuel, taking longer, and yeah, you just don't really get any gain back from it. So yeah, like I say, try a few different things out, see what suits you best. Anyway, that's about it for today though. I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.